Hello, good morning. So this is going to be a slightly different keynote than you may be used to. I will not be giving you a hand-wavy, inspirational type of talk. I will not be trying to scare you into action. I feel like those keynotes, like much about what I'm going to talk about, don't really solve anything. So we're going to talk about what actually matters. But first, I'll introduce myself. So hi, my name is Neil Wyler. In the information security community or the hacker community, I'm better known as Grifter. I am the global lead of active threat assessments for IBM X-Force. I do that by day, right? That means that essentially my entire day job is focused around IBM's threat hunting practice. I've been a threat hunter for about a decade now, full time. And again, that's what I do by day. By night, I run all the technical operations for the Black Hat security briefings. So I set up the Black Hat NOC at all the conferences around the world. I'm also one of the main organizers of DEF CON, the largest hacker convention in the world. I'm on the review boards for Black Hat and DEF CON. I help run the RSA Conference Security Operations Center as well. I've written some books. I speak at places around the world. And all of that's not supposed to be braggy. It's things that make my mom proud. But at the end of the day, what it means is that I love security. Like, I live security. I would do this for free, is what I tell people all the time. But I'm really happy that they pay me to do it. So again, what we're going to talk about today is the unique position that I've been put in, where for the last 10 years, I have gone into some of the largest companies in the world and been asked, are we doing the right things? Are the attackers already here? Can you tell us, does this program work the right way? What have you learned from your experience in defending, and I'll put in quotes, one of the most hostile networks in the world at Black Hat? And are we doing the right things? And so, again, when I have those conversations, no one says to me, can you tell me something to inspire my employees? They say, is my threat hunting program good? Am I using the right technology? What should I be doing and what am I missing? Those are the questions they ask. And so, being in the position of spending the last 20 plus years at conferences like Black Hat and RSA conference, where you go out onto the expo floor and vendors come to you and promise you the world, right? There are banners and posters and blinking lights and signs that all say, this will solve everything, right? This is the next thing. You just get this and all of your security problems will go away. And that is just not the truth, right? Vendors are not going to save us. Putting another blinky box in your environment is not going to be the solution for your security problems. We're often told now that machine learning will do that, right? AI is going to do that. We're going to have these things solved for us because everything will be automated. Well, automation only works for you to a certain extent. Mechanics still are required to use the tools, right? Somebody has to turn the wrench, right? When you could say that a sprinkler system in a building is automated, right? If it gets hot enough, it will start spraying water everywhere. But we don't say, we don't need to worry about the fire department, the sprinkler system's got it. So humans are still a very necessary part of our program, and they will be for a significant amount of time. This is not something we just set and forget and walk away. Security is complex, right? We, as these new technologies come out, we're told, no, this is the one that you need. No, this is the one you need. A little sprinkling of this, a little bit more of that. And the reality is that we kind of lose our way. We get distracted by all the shiny things, by all the blinking things, the things we're told will fix it all. And in the end, it's the foundations that really matter. And I'll show you what I mean. So it's story time with Grifter. So I'm going to share with you several stories about things that I've found while hunting in different organizations around the world. Some of them large, some of them small. In this case, one of the largest financial organizations in the world. We were asked to go in and assess their hunting program, show them best practices, discuss with them what it is that they could do to improve. I sat down with their director of security, and they said, okay, what are you going to do? How are you going to start evaluating us? And I said, all right, well, let's just show you. Let's sit down and give you an example of what it is that we're going to do. This is a major organization, hundreds of security staff. In that building alone, 38 people working in the SOC, actively at that time. Incredibly mature, right? Incredibly mature. We sit down and I say, well, let's look at some of the sessions that are going through here. We're going to look for outliers, things where there's a low number, something that we can, quickly assess by just, tabbing through it. Is that good? Is that bad? For instance, let's look at this FTP traffic. And he says, I'm sorry, we don't use FTP. And I was like, oh, well, perfect, because there's FTP traffic here, and if you're saying you don't use it, that is a great thing to go and look at. And he says, no, you don't understand. We don't allow FTP. He said, did you lose the signal? Let me try. Sorry, technical difficulties. Good?
They're checking now.
I'll take a drink while they look.
Okay. Thank you.
If I have to do that every 3 minutes, just let me know. All right. So I say, well, let's look at that then. Let's dig in it. He says, no, we don't allow it. And I was like, again, great. Let's just take a look. What we find is a small amount of traffic, clear text, right, FTP, going to a server that ends in .ru, right? These attackers were not even trying to hide. Consistent behavior every day, 1 o'clock in the morning, a file was sent out, and I say, well, do you want to look at that? They had full packet capture, so we could extract that file from the packets, rebuild it, and take a look. He said, yeah, I want to look at it. I said, well, you open it. This is your network. Opens it up, looks at it. I can only describe it as like getting the wind knocked out of you, like this, but also panic, like the sound came out. And then he closed the file, and he said, you didn't see that. And I said, all right, great. Out of curiosity, what did I not see? And he was like, that is every financial transaction and trade that we have made in the last 24 hours. So very large, very mature SOC, a lot of staff, all kinds of technology, a clear text protocol, going to Russia every night, looking at their logs for at least 6 months every night in an environment that should have been able to find that. So was it a technology failure? No, it just was the fact that they weren't looking. They were completely reliant on the technology, and they weren't using it as a tool. They were using it as a replacement for that effort, for the time spent looking. This is a US state, a large state in the United States, a mature security staff, great documentation, actually such great documentation. It's still the best network documentation I've ever seen, and they were using great best practices. But we saw traffic to an outlier region that shouldn't have been there. Again, small amounts of data, but consistently. Between every 8 to 30 seconds, records were being sent out in the clear again, and this was personally identifiable information of the individuals who lived in this state. It was one mistake. They had a test web server sitting off in a corner, and they had forgotten about it. And one of the most impeccably documented networks I've ever seen, a single web server. At the time, Apache Struts had come out. They had been exploited by that, and they were losing data, again, consistently for about 6 months. So you forget about one web server, but China did not. Now this one, a foreign government. This was not, they were understaffed, they had outdated practices, they were trying to do their best. But as soon as we get on the network and we start looking around, we see incredibly noisy traffic, incredibly noisy. And we say, what is this? Like, is this something that you're doing? Are you scanning for vulnerabilities now? Is this whatever? Can you go back and check and see what this IP address maps to? And he was like, yeah, I'm sure that's just our security team running some scans and doing whatever. And then he goes, oh no, that's an Exchange server. And we're like, well, it's not just an Exchange server anymore. So they had a very externally focused security bias. They were worried about keeping attackers out. They didn't ask the question, what if they're already here? So they weren't looking at east-west traffic. They weren't looking at the things that were going on inside their network. They were only worried about, well, how do we keep them out? How do we keep them out? Not what do we do if they get inside, excuse me. A major game developer, mature security staff, a lot of different solutions deployed, a lot of different technologies, and open to trying out new things. They were like, tell us what else we need. We'd love to know what else we need to keep these people out. We're like, all right, great, let's take a look. But they had incredibly poor network segmentation. Everything was open. As soon as you got on the network, you could see everything. Clear text credentials flying around everywhere. Credentials to their GitHub, Docker management, Confluence, Artifactory, all of the things that if an attacker even breached one layer of that security, they would have the keys to the kingdom in that organization. Now, they were not breached. There was no evidence of an attacker there. But had they been, someone could have made updates to their code and pushed them, and the next time somebody updated a game on Steam, or their game on Steam, they'd be delivered whatever that attacker wanted. When we discussed it with them, they just said, look, we're just like one big happy family. Like we're just like, we trust each other or whatever. And I'm like, that's great, like for you guys. But it's not so great if somebody comes in from the outside. So some changes were made there. Okay. In this case, this was during Black Hat. We have a significant amount of threat hunters in the Black Hat NOC during Black Hat because there's a lot to look through. Again, Black Hat is often deemed as one of the most hostile networks in the world, and that's true if you look at just the traffic at face value. It's not so true once you start to dig into that traffic, right? It looks scary because there's a lot of malicious traffic going on, but it's somebody showing their friend a demo in the hallway, or it's somebody working in a training class and trying out something that they just learned. They're working in a lab or doing something like that. The challenge that we have at Black Hat is finding the bad within the bad, right? When everything is the type of traffic that would normally cause a declared incident, then how do you determine what you actually need to worry about? And so there's a lot of hunters in the NOC at Black Hat, and they're just looking for something anomalous, something that is targeted at a specific individual on the network or a specific piece of infrastructure, maybe the core infrastructure, the registration network, things like that. It is searching for a needle in a needle stack. And it's a challenge, but we love it, and that's why we keep doing it. At Black Hat this particular year, we saw some odd traffic going just direct to an IP address. Now, humans don't often say, I found a really great site, you should check it out. It's 64.223.18. whatever, right? We say, here is a host name to go to. So we just look to see, well, what's at the other end of this IP address? And what we found was there was a 404 page being returned, but every time it returned, it came back with a different type of traffic. We were like, well, that's odd, different amounts, different things, different data inside. And as we dug in, what we discovered was that there was somebody on the network who was actively trying to attack the infrastructure as well as other attendees using an exploit for a vulnerability that had been disclosed from the stage only 12 hours before. So somebody the day prior had said, hey, we found this vulnerability, we've let the vendor know, blah, 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 here's my talk at Black Hat. And someone in that audience went, cool, and walked out into the hallway, sat down, and started writing an exploit for it. And within less than 24 hours, was actively trying to exploit that on the network. And that's what we're up against. So this wasn't a 0 day, right? The vulnerability had been disclosed, but it's the same day, and that's a challenge. Also at Black Hat, what we see is a lot of traffic that comes through. If we see executables, DLLs, PDFs, wherever, we automatically take those things, assign them a risk score, throw them into Cisco Threat Grid, like into a sandbox, open it up, see what it does, try to interact with it. So sometimes things are popping up on the screen And we're like, what's that? And in this case, we saw the Wells Fargo logo come across. And I was like, those are financial documents. We should take a look at that. When we looked at it, it was a significant amount of sensitive information on a particular individual who was in a training class. And normally, we don't have the bandwidth to walk down to every person who is experiencing some kind of problem. But in this case, it was severe enough that I thought, we should go and talk to this person. So I had their name. So I went down to the class and said to them, hey, I need to talk to you about something. Can we talk in the back of the class? And I said, hey, you're sending out a significant amount of sensitive information on the network. What's going on? And often at Black Hat, when we tell people that they already are sending command and control traffic when they get on the network, or we've detected crypto mining activity coming from their device, they're resistant to that, right? I've been in security for this many years, and this was the case here as well. They did not want to accept that something was wrong until I said, you have this much left on your mortgage. Suddenly, his attitude changed. He said, no, wait, I swear I'm using a VPN. I know I've been doing this forever. Went and got his laptop, points to the system tray, and sure enough, there's the little green icon showing that he's connected to the VPN. Unfortunately, split tunneling wasn't configured correctly, and so some of his information was flying out into the clear. I asked, why would you do that at Black Hat anyway? And he said, well, my kid is going to university in the fall, and they needed information for financial aid. And apparently, the site for this university also was not encrypting traffic as it received these files for upload. So now we let this individual know that they were sending clear text traffic, and we also contacted the university to let them know, hey, you are, in fact, having some issues. So that's the thing about Black Hat, often billed as one of the most hostile networks in the world, but we like to think we've gotten to the point where some people actually leave more secure than when they came, right? We're able to see activity, like I said, clear text credentials, if we see those, crypto mining, or any kind of confirmed command and control traffic to known C2 servers. We'll throw up a captive portal to those individuals and let them know, we've detected this type of activity on your device. If you want more information, please stop by the NOC. Right? So sure, people probably get into some trouble there, but we like to think that some people walk away better off. This happened at RSA conference. In the RSA conference SOC, we also have a group of threat hunters, and they're looking through traffic. Now, it's different in the RSA conference SOC because we don't control the infrastructure. Where at Black Hat, we remove every piece of equipment that is in the venue. We bypass it all. So at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, we replace every router, every switch, every firewall, every access point, all of it. The only thing that we use is the wires in the wall. And we do that for two reasons. One, I'm a control freak. Two, it gives us accountability and also the ability to do mitigation if that's necessary, right? So at RSA conference, we just get a mirror of the traffic from the venue. We don't have the ability to do mitigation, so it's more of an educational exhibit, essentially. But we do see that traffic, and so a junior hunter had come to me and said, hey, I think there might be some kind of like worm. It's like going out across the network. It's trying to hit all these different devices. Some of them are responding, some are not. Can you take a look at this? And I look, and I'm like, that's actually not a worm at all. What you're looking at is a MacBook in the center. The large circle in the center is a MacBook that is just shouting onto the network, anybody have any open shares that I can look at? And all of the little circles on the outside are people who said, yes, here you go. So the network at the venue where RSA conference is a flat network with no host isolation, right? Which is just absolutely insane in today's day and age. But what it means is you don't know what's happening on networks unless you take a look, right? So unless you go and look, you don't know that it's a flat network where you can see everybody. You don't know whether there is something that you should be worried about. You don't know whether your VPN is connected correctly unless you take the time to go and look at the traffic and see what is it that's being sent. Those applications you install on your phone, what data are they sending? Do yourself a favor, connect your phone to your Wi-Fi, fire up Wireshark, take a look, verify that it's doing what it says it's doing. So what do we see in these stories, right? These are foundational things. We have a company that had tunnel vision. They said that that protocol shouldn't exist. So just because you say you don't use it or you don't allow it doesn't mean it isn't there. Go and verify. Asset management, right? So a single web server, but exfiltration to China. East-west complacency. Just, yeah, we're worried about the outside tax. Once somebody's in, they're scanning the network in a very, very loud, very noisy way, and nobody is looking and no one's detecting it because they just don't care about that kind of traffic. Poor credential control, clear text credentials flying around the network, direct to IP communication, misconfigured VPNs, no host isolation. These are not difficult problems, right? And yet here we are. We're here still fighting the same types of things that we've been fighting since 19 whatever, right? So again, all of these technologies exist. All of these things we've been told are solutions. All of these different types of blinky boxes and pieces of software that were supposed to solve all these things for us, and some of the largest financial organizations in the world, some of the largest manufacturers, developers, folks who should know better, people who are at security conferences, and we're still not getting it right. So how do we do that? How do we fix the foundational things? What are the areas that we should be focused on, and how do we do that? Well, when we're combating this threat, I should pause for a moment and say, there's a lot of text on these slides, and that's on purpose. I know that you're not supposed to put a lot of text in a PowerPoint, and you're supposed to just have cute little bullet points or little pictures that remind you what you want to say. But I like to build my decks as a reference that you can use later. So you don't have to watch this on YouTube later and be like, where's the part where he said that I should do this or do that? So I'm not going to read those things word for word, but I want you to be able to have that for later. So what we're talking about here is how are we setting up like an actual defense, a SOC that matters. And I have a unique perspective on that, being that I have worked in Black Hat's NOC, running it for the last 20 years. We've had to adapt. We've had to adjust as things continued to evolve, not only on the network, but the type and scale of the attacks, the scale of the show as well. So what are the things that we use? What have we decided works? When I go into these companies, whether it is giant energy companies or governments around the world, what are the things that they're doing that work, and where are they falling down? So that's what we're going to talk about. Again, so here, just in a before type of summary, we'll talk about what matters as far as logs, packets, endpoint, right? Giving people a full scope, a full picture of the attack, making sure you have the data sources that are necessary to actually defend the network, see what's there, know where your gaps are, those types of things. Using automation in a way that actually matters versus just looking at it as a solution that will fix all of your problems. It won't do that, but it can do things like give you more actionable data. Using threat hunters alongside your analysts, or giving your analysts time to hunt. And this last point here on this slide is leveraging outside help. It's okay to ask for help, right? It's okay to understand we have a skills gap here. We don't have the ability to do this particular type of activity, or we just don't have the folks who can do that at this point. And until we get there, we need some outside help. Or honestly, you just don't care about that thing and you want to outsource it to somebody else. So work with managed service providers, work with somebody who can offload some of the pain for you so that you can get to the things that actually matter. So I said we're going to get foundational. It doesn't get more foundational than logs. Logs have been the gold standard for decades and will be the gold standard for decades to come. So what you should be doing is logging everything that's possible, right? If it creates a log, log it. Like, storage is cheap. I'm not saying you have to ingest it into your SIM and that it could be potentially expensive for you, whatever, and you don't even have to look at it. I implore you, please look at your logs. But just having them means that if at a certain point you get into a situation where you experience a breach, and a team comes in from the outside to do IR, and you can say, I've got the last year or 6 months or 14 days of logs. They'll take whatever they can have, but if they come and you say, yeah, we have partial coverage, it's not really, it's not great, some of the logs are kept in this system, some of them are here, invest in a SIM that matters, pull all of that data into one place, but make sure that it's something that your analyst, that your team wants to use. If it's slow, if it's difficult to use, you might as well not own it. All you're doing is throwing money out the window. Make sure that it's a solution that works. As many log sources as possible, pull them all into one place and start digging through them. When it comes to network, on the network side of house, network analytics, NDRs are great, right? Network analytics is great, but also full packet capture. If you're not doing full packet capture in your environment today, I recommend that you strongly consider it. Had I gone into that financial organization who was experiencing a document leaving their environment or a file leaving their environment every night, I would have known that there was a file leaving. Had I just had logs or maybe even network analytics, I'd know that there was a file leaving every night. I'd know what its name was and I'd know where it was going, and that would seem bad. But having full packet capture allowed me to rebuild that file and see what was taken. It gives you a different way of looking at exfiltration. If you are unfortunate enough to experience a breach, but you have the ability to say, we know that this is what left. That is huge. It's huge legally, it's huge about and how you disclose that breach. So having the ability to say, this is what was taken is, I cannot stress the importance of that enough. It's essentially video surveillance for your network. We would never build a building like this today and then say, you know what, it's expensive and it's a lot of storage for all of that video. So we're just not gonna do it. We'll find a different way. We'll take a picture every 5 minutes or something like that. We wouldn't do that. So why do we do that with our networks? Put full packet capture in place, find a way to start small if you have to, and as you show the value of having that, continue to grow. On the endpoint, right? Endpoint's where the rubber meets the road. As a threat hunter, if I had only one thing that I could actually hunt, and if you said one data source, what would it be? It would be endpoint, right? I want to know what's taking place on the actual devices, the hosts and the servers and everything that's in that environment, right? So going in and understanding what is going on these devices? Why do we have these applications on here? How often are they used? What other things do they spawn? What processes are running? What are our scheduled tasks? What's going on? Understanding your endpoints is huge. Being able to also take the things that cross those endpoints and throw them again into a sandbox, malware analysis of some kind. You see something shady on an endpoint, you want to be able to take it, throw it into a sandbox somewhere and see what it does and hopefully interact with it if possible. Right? Oh, threat intelligence. So threat intelligence is incredibly, incredibly important to your security program, but valuable threat intelligence. I will add a caveat to that and say valuable threat intelligence. Getting 36 different feeds of IP addresses, host names, and file hashes every day and calling that threat intelligence is not the way to do it. I believe it was Joe Sluick who said that IOCs are essentially security junk food. They make you feel good. They make you feel like you're doing something, right? They're easy to ingest. But in the end, you're left kind of feeling gross, right? It doesn't really do a lot for you. And ultimately, you're like, I don't know if we actually did anything there. And that's the truth. What we should be focused on are tactics, techniques, and procedures, right? TTPs. But not just TTPs for every group that's out there. What we want to do when it comes to threat intelligence is take a look at our organization and say, who is most likely to attack me? Who's coming for us? If I'm in energy or I know I'm in oil and gas or I'm in financial or I'm in healthcare, well, if I'm in healthcare, what are the most likely threat actor groups to target healthcare organization? Okay, well, I've now narrowed down the, hundreds of different threat actor groups out there to 6 that target, healthcare. How do they conduct their campaigns? All right, well, they come at you this way, they use these techniques, they use these tools. Here are the artifacts that are left by those tools, right? Understanding who is most likely to come for you means that you actually are going to have an impact on the amount of risk to your organization and drive that risk down. So we wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, okay, I'm going to make sure that if, let's say we're in Tokyo, right? We probably wouldn't spend a ton of money on making sure that we were protected against a tornado, let's say. But if we spent no money on preparing for an earthquake, that would be odd, right? So we don't want to spend a bunch of money preparing for an attack for some attack group that just gets a lot of press when the likelihood that they're going to attack us is relatively small. Where we want to spend that money and spend those resources and that precious time is on the individuals who we know are likely to come for us. It's also, this is another area where there's a significant amount of data out there. There's plenty of open source feeds. You can go out and subscribe to things, but that's a lot, and they overlap each other quite a bit, right? If there was a Venn diagram of threat intelligence, the overlapping would be absolutely insane. If you don't have the ability to curate that threat intelligence yourself, it's fine to go out and find an organization who does that for you. Actually, it might be better, because then you can just say to them, tell me who the most likely groups to target me are, tell me what the TTPs are, and then I can go and look and see if I even have visibility into those types of techniques, right? And that, again, is where you're going to make an actual impact. So if you don't have the ability to do that, seek outside help. It's okay to ask for help. If you think about how much of a budget you would need to create a new team to do something that you could pay another organization to do for you. Again, making sure they do it well, of course. You want to get something quality out of it. But make sure that, that they're spending that time, those resources, that you're spending that time and resources on something that matters. Hunting. So as a hunter, this is pretty selfish, but this is going out and proactively searching for attackers in your environment. Being able to answer the question, is there somebody already here? In my opinion, again, selfishly, is the most important question that you can answer about your environment. Because if you go out and start to deploy new technologies and an attacker is already in your environment, they're watching you deploy it. They're likely going to figure out a way to get around it or persist. If you decide to do a pen test or an adversary simulation, a red team exercise, and there is an attacker already there, you're giving them a class on how to move throughout your network. They're just going to watch the other pen testers come in, and maybe they're siloed into a certain part of the network they've been stuck in for months, but now you hired a different team to come in and they're running around doing their assessment, and the attacker went, I did not think of that, and follows them through the door. So being able to know that an attacker is not in your environment is a critical question to be able to answer, and your threat hunters help you answer that. But it's not just about finding attackers. Threat hunters also help you find what I call enablers of compromise. An enabler of compromise is something that gives the attacker a leg up when they get in, or gives them an opportunity to get into that environment. So if we're focused on only finding an attacker with threat hunters, we're probably going to be disappointed. We also don't want to find them every day, all the time. That would be terrible. But the reality is being able to identify as you're out there hunting, hey, this portion of the network isn't segmented off from here, or why does this application exist on our golden images, and answer those questions allows you to reduce your overall attack surface and reduce risk, and hunters are going to help you do that. Automation, right? So again, we can't, despite what we're told on expo floors at Black Hat and RSA conference and security conferences everywhere, you can't just automate the pain away. Nothing's going to automate it all for you, but it can give you more actionable data. You can build playbooks that allow you to get data out of it that makes it so that the limited time that you have or the resources that you have in your SOC allow you to focus on actionable things that matter, rather than noise. So automation can help you find the signal in the noise, or it can do things like how we use it at Black Hat, where the scale of the show got to a point where it was like, oh, this is really a lot of data to ingest. It's hard for us to hunt through all this. We've got to collect data from all these different areas. Now, if we have an incident, we just say, pull the data from every device in here around that time frame and around these devices, and it all gets pulled into one nice package for us. So automation is great for things like that, but like I said, it's not going to be something where you just click a button and suddenly security is there. Now, red teaming. So red teams are great, but there's a difference between different types of red team or offensive activity. There's vulnerability scanning, which is just software. You're clicking a button and off it goes, and it tells you, oh, here's some things that you should care about. This is not a pen test. This is clicking a button. Pen testing is performed by an actual human, not a piece of software, right? They might use software, but this is a skilled professional with varied skill set, but it's a numbers game. They're going out and trying to hit as many things as possible, get as deep as they can in as many different ways, and then they'll give you something at the end and say, here's all the stuff that we found. And then there's red teaming. And red teaming is where you take both tools and people and you put them together, and what you want a red team to do is emulate how an attacker will move through that environment. Give them a goal, tell them where they should focus, and see if they can get there. And if they can, what do you do about that, right? Okay, well, they were able to get past our defenses here and here. They were emulating this attack group who we know is likely to attack us. Let's get those things mitigated. Let's get those things fixed. A red team should have, using the threat intelligence that's so important to your organization, they should have a goal to be working in a way that says they are emulating this group. They are emulating these types of attacks. Let's see if they're successful doing that. Just saying, we're hiring a red team, they're going to come in and do some stuff. There's no value there. Give them focus, give them something to do, and then they will deliver results that will turn your hair white, probably. All right, so what do we do now? Well, you need to build a program that builds on itself. So where do we go? What do we do? And this is the question that I get asked the most. Where should I start? I've said it several times. Start with threat intelligence, right? Know who your most likely attackers are and know how they're going to attack you. And once you know how they're going to attack you, go and see if you have the data sources available to see those types of attacks. Do you have the network visibility? Do you have the visibility into the endpoints that you need? And if you don't have those things, be sure to communicate that up to leadership, up to the board. Hey, we need budget, we need additional headcount. We're blind to these things here. And these are things that the most likely groups to attack us are going to do, and we can't see it. Being able to communicate that will likely get you the budget that you're looking for versus just always saying, I need more budget, right? So look for that where you're blind so that you know, like, you can shore up your defenses. Threat hunting, again, so once you've done that, once you have all those data sources in place, is there somebody already here? Give hunters access to those data sources and tell them to get to work. If they're looking and they don't find somebody, well, what are the other things in there that might enable an attacker to stay if they do get in, or give them a leg up if they do? Again, hunters are going to find things. They always find things. I have never been on an engagement where I haven't found something. I always find something. So if you're given those things from your threat hunters, say, all right, this is what we need to fix now. Let's go in there and take care of that, reduce that attack surface again, and move things forward. Make it a little bit more difficult when the attackers eventually do come. Go in and do those things proactively. Have them thinking like attackers, going out, finding those things, and then mitigate them. Make sure that you actually solve them. Knowing it's a problem and doing nothing about it doesn't help. And then, please, my recommendation is don't move straight to red teaming, right? Don't move straight to adversary simulation. Discuss with whoever your red team that you're talking to, whether they're internal or external, discuss doing a purple team exercise with them. Having them actually sit down, the red team sitting down next to the blue team and saying, today we're going to emulate the attacks of this group. We're going to do that now. Click. Did you see that? Did we get an alert? Do we have visibility into what I just did? It allows them to collaborate and work as a team rather than coming in adversarially and feeling like they're just getting beat up. Do not beat up your defenders. They get beat up enough. Have them work side by side with the red team. Discover what things, again, that they didn't see when they were working through that purple team exercise, and then come back later and do a pen test or a red team exercise or adversary simulation and see what happens. But build that relationship first through purple teaming. And then rinse and repeat. Keep getting more intel. Make sure your data sources are there. Hunt through it. Mitigate it. Go in, have somebody emulate it, and see if you can see it. And just do it over and over and over again. Security is repetitive, but it's necessary. And I know I said that blinky boxes weren't going to fix everything, but here are the technologies that matter. These are the ones that enable your folks to make a difference, right? These are the ones that are, in our experience at places like Black Hat or RSA conference, or again, in organizations that I've been in all over the world, in world governments and those things, these are the ones that actually matter. Oh, that's like, boom, you're cut off. So, well, you can't see it now, but there's a slide that says thank you, and that's the end. Thank you.